episode of Frisella Nurseries All Around the Yard. I am Laura Hill, the Garden Center Manager, temporarily sitting in for Tony Frisella. He is out in the world doing Tony Frisella things, so we thought that it would be a good idea for myself to get with our guest today, very special guest. Her name is Natalie Patterson. She is with the company INGARDEN. She is a co-founder, and we're just going to get right into it. Natalie, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I just honestly can't wait to get to chat with you and talk about INGARDEN, talk about microgreens, and hopefully give your listeners a lot of value from our episode today.
Absolutely. So give us a little bit of your background. Let me know how you got started, what you're interested in, how you got started on the path within garden.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology, and I've always had a passion for nutrition and just understanding exactly what's going on in our body and, why we need to consume particular foods and particular nutrients, and what does it really mean to be healthy. And I think for each of us, that's a different story. And so this kind of took me on the path, and I'm now one semester away from completing my master's degree in food science, which is more the application, thank you, which is more the, application of, how do we deliver high quality nutritional products to consumers, right? We know what's right for us, but then how do we apply that? And so with that notion of application, I kind of wanted to bring this crossroads of old world, connecting with our food and actually gardening and touching and feeling and knowing where our food comes from, but also high impact nutrition and the need for convenience, right? So that kind of crossroads between conveniency and ease and high quality nutrition, as well as connecting with your food, is kind of my vision and passion behind INGARDEN. And that's something I wanted to deliver. And I hope that people will see that in the product itself.
Right. That the accessibility is a big thing. We have seen in the green industry a massive shift towards more organic gardening. We're seeing younger and younger people come in interested in growing their own healthy foods and knowing where their foods come from and things like that. So it's been it's exciting for everyone to kind of be getting on board, and especially in the last year and a half, 2 years with the pandemic, and people worried about shortages, people worried about, cleanliness and health and things like that. It's been a really cool kind of a fallout from a tragedy, really, to see everyone kind of get back in the dirt, get back into, that old world style of growing your own food.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. I really think it shows our human adaptability to take something that was a less favorable situation and, make good come out of it. And in that notion of connecting with our food, despite my, scientific expertise in the field, my passion is deeply rooted in my culture, because I actually grew up in New Zealand, and we have a saying called hikeki ukuringa, which is the Maori saying for connect with our food, in the sense of food from my hands. And I know that Tony did an episode about indoor gardening, and he did an episode as well with his wife Christine about parenting and how do we get kids more enthusiastic about eating their vegetables. And with INGARDEN, I hope not only to get kids more enthusiastic about eating something like microgreens, but also all of us, right? Because at the end of the day, that saying out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes vegetables get lost in the back of the fridge, or if you do have the space to have a garden, sometimes I have to, go outside and manage, get, it's work. At the end of the day, I know we all want to be healthy and better ourselves, but sometimes when there's barriers to do that, no matter how small the barrier, we, can persuade ourselves against it, I suppose.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
My vision with INGARDEN is this hydroponic indoor, microgreen growing system that can be on your coffee table. It can
Right.
be on your kitchen island. It can be, on the counter somewhere in the kitchen, maybe by your fridge. It can be in your living room, right? It's
Right.
aesthetic enough, I feel,
Yes,
to
they're
go
beautiful.
anywhere.
That's one of the really cool things about this is, I have some background in growing. Of course, I'm an avid gardener, and
You don't
even
say.
just even just seed sprouting. Getting back to working with your kids and kind of getting them interested and excited about it. That's one of the funnest things that you can possibly see is when children get involved and they get to watch
Yes.
the entire process, and especially with set up like this, it's so fast they don't
Yes.
lose interest. That it's exciting. They get to wake up every day and see the progress and all that, and especially being able to have it on your kitchen counter, or
Yeah.
somewhere that is, you see it constantly. Watching the growth pattern is a really cool thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, no,
So
I like that you
so let's take a
mentioned.
step back because we've kind of skipped over here. Tell us exactly what it is and where you came up with the concept, and kind of talk us through your pattern there.
Yes, let's I feel like we could definitely go on many tangents, you and I. So in garden, microgreens, right? What first are microgreens? I feel like they definitely are an underdiscovered field, but to many of our surprise, microgreens are simply the baby versions of many of the vegetables we know. For example, here in garden, we have microgreen seeds so that you can go broccoli microgreens, red cabbage microgreens, kale microgreens, arugula microgreens, and many more. But I hope that many of our listeners who heard some of those names recognize broccoli. What? Right? So microgreens are, I suppose, they kind of started in the realm of high dining culinary. They were kind of like a vegetable confetti per se. However, the research continues to show us, the scientific literature, as well as in garden, we did a nutritional analysis on our microgreens themselves, which I'm happy to talk about more in a little while. But the point is, microgreens are nutritionally dense. And what that means for us as the eaters of microgreens is that we are getting a high value for our nutritional buck, in the sense of we only need to consume a small quantity of these greens and we will get a higher percentage of micronutrients, meaning our vitamins, our minerals, and important bioactive compounds. To kind of put a quantification on that, I suppose, let's take the red cabbage microgreens, for example, and list a couple of nutrients for you. So vitamin A. When you compare mature red cabbage, which I hope most of us can visualize, a beautiful like purple color red cabbage, when you
Right.
compare that to red cabbage microgreens and the vitamin A content, microgreens per serving have 230% more. When it
Wow.
comes when it comes
That is, quantifying it like that, it's really
yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah, just to list a few more, when it comes to the folate, which is vitamin B9, there's 150% more. When it comes to the mineral manganese, there's 88% more. And get this, wait for this. When it comes to the phosphorus content, there's 2,150% more. So
Wow.
all of these numbers I'm listing, right? Double,
Yeah.
triple, quadruple digits. It's kind of hard to understand and fathom that. However, that is, circling back to the nutritional analysis, I'm not just pulling these off the top of my head or listing them based on, what scientific literature has found when studying microgreens, but these are in garden microgreens. The
Wow.
seeds you buy and the microgreens you grow are verified to give you these nutrients. And knowing that, kind of having that confidence and guarantee in our food source and the nutrients they contain, is something we don't necessarily have today with all the craziness in the world of nutrition and
Right.
diets and stuff. It's kind of like this says that, that says this, but to know that by simply adding a whole food source, a vegetable, right? Remember, these are baby vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
By just adding that into our diet, we're helping ourselves. I think
Right.
having that mentality of like, what more things can we add and how can we make that simple at the same time is really important.
Right. I think back to the first time that I ever did any microgreens for myself, and I was shocked. It tastes like the broccoli sprouts taste like mature broccoli. Like
Yeah.
you can tell the taste is kind of super compacted into the green.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
makes sense that the vitamins and minerals would be as well. The nutrients are there and you
I
know it,
like that
you know.
comparison. I
Right.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That was my first thought, because I was expecting it to be like, an accent or, I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting the taste to be there, I guess.
Yeah. No,
And it really is.
what's so
Yeah.
great is like they definitely range from, a more delicate kind of sweeter flavors to more,
Mhm.
spicy and kind
Right.
of I guess impactful, distinct
Mhm.
flavors, which is great because again, like I think many of us, we don't only eat with our eyes, but obviously the taste of something, and especially when it comes to healthier food, is kind of not usually has the best stereotype,
Right.
but these are just as valuable as seasoning or herbs addition to our food. And I think that, you know, there is a barrier to the, adding these type of vegetable foods because they're kind of, I suppose, uh, stereotype to be a decoration, stereotype to like just add, not really add value, but like quantifying their nutritional value and realizing that technically don't have to eat as big a serving as you would perhaps your whole mature vegetables that might appeal to those, one, trying to get the kids to sneak in the vegetables, or two, if
Definitely.
you're just like you don't feel like having a large serving of vegetables with your dinner, you could sprinkle it over your pizza and just, pat yourself on the back. Like, hey, like at least I'm adding some source of, added nutrition here. Like
Right. Yeah.
there can be a fun balance with it. It doesn't have to be, I suppose, strict in a sense. Like that's what I like about the device is like I want it to be fun. I want it not only to be a product and something you can enjoy and eat, but just an experience. And
Right.
back to, watching the growth. The cool thing about microgreens is how quick you harvest them. In a week you have your full grown microgreens, and if you don't get to that in a week, that's fine too. Like they, that's nutrition straight from the source, so they're not going to go die. Perhaps if you accidentally left them in a bag in the fridge,
Right.
if you bought them at your supermarket or your farmer's market. I definitely know, before before I suppose InGarden was born, I would enjoy buying microgreens. However, the cost of buying them wasn't always the best because I would forget them. And microgreens are so delicate that they do, go off quicker than, say, your mature broccoli, right?
Right. Right.
And so like that kind of fine balance, back to your question of what's in garden all about, it's truly that. Like as a busy working college student, I know I don't have the time as much as I wish I did to tend to a garden and maybe a family, mom with 3 kids, right? Like you don't necessarily have the time. You have to prioritize things. And even if you do, I don't think we should sacrifice the kind of joy of getting to connect with our food just because time's a factor or busyness is a factor, because life does get in the way, right? But
Most
let's
definitely.
find ways to make it, convenient for us. And I feel
Right.
like indoor gardening is one aspect that we can do that.
Sure. And that there again, the convenience and accessibility is what makes this product so cool, is that, you don't have to be a gardener to be able to enjoy fresh greens that you know where they came from. That's the most important part, is that especially modern consumers are we're just more knowledgeable, we're more informed than we
Yeah.
ever have been. And so, you know, everyone has started to question things like that. Like,
Yes.
how many people have touched the cabbage that I just bought
Yep.
at the grocery store? Where did it come from? What has it been sprayed with? All
Yep.
those questions that we have. So having a
Not to
product like
mention,
this is just, it's just super cool.
yeah, and not to mention, how long has it been on the supermarket
Yeah.
shelf? Where did it come from? Did it come from
Right.
my state? Did it come from another state, another country? Right? Like, unfortunately, as soon as a food or a plant is picked, we know that it starts to die naturally, right? Like, am I saying that vegetables and fruit are bad? No, not at all. I'm saying that there's a kind of scale of more optimal and less optimal, right? And on the side of more optimal, it's doing it yourself. It's growing
Right.
your own food. It's when you need it, you pick it, or in the case of the microgreens, you cut them and put them on your plate, right?
Right.
It's that's the optimal, but it's okay that we can't always do that, and there's a sliding scale, right? And kind of finding ways to kind of you know I guess move towards the more optimal side is going to do us service no matter what. And so I think by, you know, recognizing that there's always more we can do, yes, but kind of that balance back to what we're saying with like modern living, there is a need for conveniency and ease, right? Even
Right.
I'm sure you guys teach your customers and listeners how to make gardening easier for them,
Right.
like
Sure.
at the end of the day we're all looking for those tips, and InGarden, I biasly would say it's something that can deliver that to those who do need, the simplicity. And, obviously, in terms of design itself, ease, right? All you have to do is add water, like that one step, add water. And even for those who would classify them as like plant killers, like you just can't keep anything alive, InGarden is autonomous. The watering system, autonomous. The lighting system, autonomous. Like everything is done for you. All you have to do is enjoy the microgreens, right? And actually, add them to your dishes. And I definitely know that sometimes taking the initial leap of, say, purchasing an indoor gardening device, whether it's InGarden or something else, or even the initial leap of starting your garden, in outside, like there's always this kind of hurdle of like starting, right? But I
Right.
think once we just take that step and start, usually that motivation kind of grows on itself and we
Right.
get the ball rolling. Like once we just get that ball rolling, it keeps rolling. And I think
Right.
sometimes, that initial hurdle is hard, but which is great is your listeners have the 20% discount code for InGarden, all around 20, right? Just I would say, pictures are worth 1,000 words, videos even more than that. And so I would encourage your listeners just to look at the website, look at the device yourself, watch, the YouTube video associated with the podcast, see it. And then obviously you've got to feel it. And so, what to you, I would say, like my vision, and I would love to hear your feedback on this, was high quality inside and out, right? High quality nutrition inside, but then also product outside, high quality. And so, as a company, one of our missions is being environmentally sustainable. And so all of our packaging has no plastic, all of our materials, the actual base itself is ceramic, the surrounding light system is stainless steel, and even the plates themselves where you place the seed mats, stainless steel. And for me, there's a hard, interesting point where we're at as companies in this, growing world, in the sense of, unfortunately, a lot of corners are cut, I would say. I know my grandfather always used to say, like, back in my day, people had their name on their product and took pride in the service they delivered, or the product they delivered. And so that was something I kind of wanted to bring forward and give that high quality. And so I would love to just hear your thoughts on what you kind of think with the actual design itself now that you've had your hands on it.
Sure. So one of the most initial impressing things that I saw whenever I started looking into the product before it
Yes.
arrived here, because our team had interacted with you and we had spoken about it.
Yes.
And the fact that you guys not only I'll preface with this, in the green industry, we are not very green. There's lots of waste. There's just, that's just part of it, you know? And then when I first started looking into your product, I realized like they are cornering part of the green market and actually standing behind what the goal is, you know, and the fact that all the way down to the packaging, it's recyclable, you know, the pads. One of the questions that I have for you is about the seed pads themselves.
Yes.
And they're compostable. So there's no waste there.
Yeah.
In the end, you have no waste. And I mean, part of the, if we can swap the camera down, we have one set up here on the desk. We have another camera so that we can chat and look at it at the same time. So this is the ceramic part here on the bottom for our viewers. And it's heavy, like it's well made, it's high quality. You can tell just touching it, feeling it, moving it around, that it's very high quality, and it's beautiful. It's an interesting piece just to have on your counter, not even just for kids, but when your girlfriend comes over, she's going to immediately ask what that is, you know. But that was one of the most impressive things, just initial reaction to your company, is the fact that you guys are truly pushing the sustainable standard.
Yeah.
And I think that is incredible, because like I said, there's lots of waste in the green industry on our end, especially with landscaping and gardening and all of that kind of stuff. It just is part of the industry at this point. But even down, I'll go ahead and open these for our viewers, even down to, like I said, the seed pads are completely compostable. And I think that is just so cool, because there again, we have more interest these days. People are more concerned about the earth and about, you know, living sustainably so that future generations can enjoy the same liberties that we have, you know. And so I just think that is so cool. I also think, I mean, there again, the convenience factor is it's just unbeatable. I mean, really, because when you talk to people about, you know, home gardening, most of the time if they don't have experience with it, they have nowhere to start. They have no idea where to get started, or, you know, it all seems scary, you know, because there's a lot of investment there. There's a lot of time involved. The other cool thing that you guys have really nailed it with this is it's almost instant gratification, like almost, like you're very, very close to that. You know, I think I read 7 days is pretty much the timeline on everything. How quickly do you see the sprouts? How quickly do you see them germinate?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So what's fun is, like, I love, you know, hearing from the customers themselves. And that's what's amazing about social media. And what is fun is I've heard, you know, some consumers, depending on, you know, the weather right around them, have seen within hours. Which is crazy to hear. For me, I would say, you know, you can distinctly see a change within 24 hours, right? You can just see that initial, like, tiny, cute little sprout, right? Coming out of the seed shell. And I suppose the guarantee here is the sprout rate, and is the, again, quality of the seeds themselves, right? You don't have to worry about, you know, pesticides, herbicides. We are certified organic and non-GMO. And I know that is important to consumers these days, you know, I suppose, verification that what they're buying, you know, is up to promise with what is claimed to be. And
definitely,
I think, you know, kind of on the note you mentioned of INGARDEN and what we're addressing, and, you know, in the green space yourself, you see these pitfalls with the challenges, right? I think we're in this time now of transition on so many levels, on kind of recognizing the pros and the cons of ways we've done things for, you know, decades now, and realizing, hey, some of these things are going to have to be changed. And so, like, I would say, in terms of INGARDEN and missions and kind of challenges that we do try to address, it falls under 3 levels. The first level would be the individual, which is in the sense of bettering our nutrition, right? Each of us, we all know there's a little more we could be doing to, have healthier diet. And well, what that is microgreens, right? Finding a way to add nutrition through a whole food source, getting those micronutrients that we do need, because they serve as the tools to help our body function at its best. All you're doing is like literally handing your body, which is the workers right for you, the tools they need to do their job to function optimally. So that's, on the individual level. But above that, I also value, because I actually teach undergrad nutrition classes. And one thing I really emphasize is not only thinking about ourselves, but thinking about our community. And so here at INGARDEN, we have actually joined forces with the World Food Program called Share the Meal, which for every INGARDEN bought, a meal is given to a child in need. And so I think sometimes in the world of nutrition, we're often inward focused, which obviously makes sense, but I think we can have a wider community impact. And so that's kind of second tier at INGARDEN. And then third, to circle back to, you mentioning the environmental impact, that's our sustainability mission in the sense of, individual nutrition, community nutrition, and then sustainability for the planet, caring about our planet, caring about our impact. And that's why we are a carbon neutral company. We do pay attention to the details with our packaging, right? In the sense of, hey, we all know that changing the world is impossible if you try to think about you as an individual doing that. But if it can be a domino effect in the sense of who I'm around, I can touch them and make a difference in my smaller community. And then that kind of percolates and domino effects to you doing the same with those around you. That's how we start making change. And it doesn't have to seem as daunting as it may if we try to think about it, on this massive scale, us doing it ourselves, right? No, we are just adding to the positivity, again, back to balls rolling, right? We are adding in a push in the right direction. And what you guys do, having this platform for listeners to, learn that gardening doesn't have to be daunting, whether that's indoor or outdoor. You are contributing not only to yourself, but to the world around you in the sense of creating more green space in your community, right? And I know that on one of Tony's episodes, talking about the joy of nature. Like it may seem, a little far-fetched. However, like science has shown that psychologically, nature is a positive for us. And I know in the episode, it was mid 2020. And so, him and his guests were discussing like, it is not only beneficial having more outdoor space and getting outdoors, breathing the fresh air, touching the grass, maybe going bare feet, but also bringing it indoors. I think he said, beautifying our space. And so with that, how fun is it with INGARDEN to not only have, as you mentioned, when your girlfriend comes over, it's not only a decorative piece, but it's an edible decorative piece, right? And I think what's great too, like with the ceramic bowl you mentioned, yes, it is heavy, but what's cool about it is you can actually take it, out of, in and out of the lighting device. So you can bring that to your table. It can be a dish on your table. It doesn't have to be forgotten. And even if at one point you don't want to be growing microgreens at a point in time, you can actually use that dish for something else, whether it be a different decorative piece, filling it with something else, or even a casserole dish. Like that's how, how can we, have multiple uses from the things around us and kind of be crafty in that sense, I suppose, in that tier of thinking bigger than just ourselves is so important.
Most definitely. I am with you on the joy. That's something that we kind of push a lot of, especially within the last year or so.
Yeah.
But in general, growing herbs inside, having houseplants inside, having living things in any space that you can possibly put them, in my mind, is a necessity at this point. I mean, once, and it's almost an addiction. I mean, people, once they realize the amount of just endorphins that you can get from having living things around you, and caring for living things, sharing them with other people, like you mentioned, having someone over and getting to introduce them to the INGARDEN setup, and then also have them taste it and use it in their meals. That's just a really cool thing to be able to share with people. You're sharing the joy at that point, you know.
Oh, what a wonderful way to put it. I think, I think that goes around even back to house plants, like, oh yeah, like this is my baby, like,
Yeah, right.
like it's fun. And I think we're starting to gain more and more appreciation for it. Like you mentioned, kind of just give it a go once or maybe twice, because you might fail once, but get some good tips from this podcast, right? And all the episodes you give. And I think, again, our mindset is usually the biggest barrier we have to get over first. And I think what's great too is like, in the world of nutrition these days, it's a lot about, this is bad, like don't eat this, don't do this. There's so much negative, but I always try to just put a positive spin around it, in the sense of, hey, what more can I add to my diet? Maybe that's an extra glass of water. Maybe that's one other serving of fruit in a day. Or in the case of microgreens, adding some microgreens to whatever meal you're having, right? That addition mindset, I think, is just creating more positive relationship with food. And even in the sense of gardening in general, right? Like, kind of thinking about it with, oh, I don't have the time or the resources, or it's just going to be a hassle. Like, again, that's such a negative spin. So what if we turn that around and say, like, what if I just started with microgreens, indoor? And then what if that, again, with the domino effect, what if that turned into me planting little herb pots on my windowsill, to then, hey, what if I do have the space outdoors, maybe planting some tomatoes, whatever it might be, right? Like, just thinking one step at a time, like baby steps.
Right. And I love when companies like you guys come along, because you make it tangible for people. You kind of give them the avenue to take that path and say, oh, well, I am going to try this because it's easy and it's cool. And it's even just a talking point, like it's just an interesting piece to have. So it gives people that doorway to say, I'm going to try this, because it's not scary. It's a cool adventure. It's just one of those things that it makes healthy living more tangible for people.
Yeah. Right. No, that's a great point, tangible in the sense of, actually getting to connect with your food once again, because you mentioned, like, when we care for something, where there's more joy kind of, I guess, taken from that. And I think the same applies to, even if you're not much of a cook, perhaps you've tried doing a recipe from scratch yourself before. And even if you botched it and it didn't turn out good, I bet you still got some joy, and maybe you still thought it tasted all right, in the sense of, when we are a part of the process, and in the sense of microgreens, a part of the growing process, every day you get to see a small amount of growth, and only in a week, like you said, almost instant gratification, right? You're gonna see growth, where sometimes with other vegetables or plants that you plant, you do have to have some patience, which we don't have much of in today's instant society of click click click, right? So I think what's great is, I definitely am trying to push that crossroads between urban living and the old world appreciation of authentic kind of, I guess, natural human instincts that we have, that we definitely aren't tapping into. And like you mentioned with joy, like, there's a reason why our mental health isn't, as strong as maybe it used to be. And I know one part of the puzzle is kind of that busyness busyness, where we make excuses not to take care of ourselves or the space around us, and I definitely think that the value of something like INGARDEN isn't just about the microgreens and the health benefits, but it's everything else we've talked about.
Right. And it's a primitive response, being able to create something and see it through its life cycle, and then be able to utilize it in the end, is that kind of endorphin rush that you get through that process is it's not a crafted response. That's the way you're
Yeah.
supposed to feel, and I
Yeah.
think that's really cool. So
Yeah.
you mentioned recipes and failed recipes and things like that. So tell me your personal experience. What are your favorite ways to use the microgreens, and which ones are
Ooh.
your favorite?
Ooh, great question. Okay, so one thing that I do like, as I mentioned, is the variety. Here right now we have 8 different microgreens that you can experience and enjoy. And so for me, it's kind of figuring out and having fun with tasting, like tasting this and tasting that, and seeing which you prefer based on your taste preferences, what you want to pair with what. But an interesting addition that most people don't think about, that I've actually hooked my mum on, is adding microgreens to her smoothies in the morning, right? I think we're
I
all
wondered about
familiar.
that. Yeah.
I think we're all familiar with adding, say, kale or spinach, right? That used to be more taboo, but I think it's more, I guess, accepted these days, in the sense of you don't really taste it when it's all ground up. Maybe if you add a whole container or something of spinach, but if you just add a nice handful, you don't taste it. And the same with the microgreens, in the sense of you are getting so much bang for your nutritional buck by simply adding them in. Again, adding it, whether you're adding it to your smoothies or soup, or on top of your chicken, or in a sandwich, whatever it might be, right? Literally anything you have, you can add microgreens. That's why they're the term vegetable confetti. I actually do quite like, because it is
I
fun just
like
thinking of like
that.
some
Yeah.
vegetable confetti. And I think here at INGARDEN, we're trying to show that they're more than just a fun decoration, but
Right.
they are nutritionally impactful. Like, it's hard these days to find, I suppose, something that is a natural whole food source that is delivering all these nutrients. I think often we think as consumers that we have to turn to supplements, but the point about supplements is they're just that, a supplement to an already solid diet that is,
Right.
delivering your body the tools that it needs from nature. And, back to what you mentioned about primitive, right? Our body knows how to recognize how nutrients are packed in whole foods.
Right.
Our body understands that. But when it comes to a supplement, it's a bit more of a guess game in
Mhm.
regards to, is your body really absorbing and recognizing those nutrients,
Right.
right? It's just facts. It's not an equal playing field. But when it comes to the way nature intended it, it pretty much gets it right.
Right.
And so, to know that you can have fun with your food and also a guarantee of those benefits, I think it's hard to find. So that is definitely something that I push with In Garden, and just in general of how we approach our nutrition and our diet. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be complicated, hard, or break the bank with all these extra things they say we need, right? Our body knows how to do it right. Our body can get it right. We just have to give our body the tools it needs. And
Right.
those tools are our micronutrients that we get from our vegetables, our fruit, our grains, right? And in this case, microgreens. Like, why haven't we talked about them sooner is my question.
Right. That
Yeah.
is definitely a question. My first interaction, I guess, with microgreens was it was probably in the mid 2000s or so, when the foodie scene really
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
kicking up, and I would see them on plates, and I literally thought, oh, that's a garnish, that's an accent, a visual accent for the
Yeah.
plate. And
Mm-hmm.
and as I started kind of becoming more aware of what they were and the superpowers behind them, basically, it is incredible that they're not more widely used at this point, I guess. And just
Yeah.
like you said, I had questioned, like, oh, I'm sure you could probably put those in smoothies. And
Yep.
why not? Why are we not using those more? It's I think the interest is growing for sure, and especially,
Yes.
like I said, with products like this, where people can know nothing about it order one, get it in 7 days later, they have a full crop of microgreens to utilize. I think that that's going to help a lot for sure. And I don't think people realize until you put the data in front of them. I don't think they realize just how super packed with nutrients microgreens are in comparison to other mature vegetables that you use on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know. Back to, I guess, the quantification. Obviously, I just highlighted red cabbage, but on our website, we do have a full extensive comparison and fun graphics comparing the nutritional content of mature vegetables versus microgreens. And, on that note, I do want to mention, I am not saying that microgreens are the magic silver bullet to your health. Definitely still, please eat your mature whole vegetables and fruit. Again, back to the word addition. Microgreens are another thing you can do to better your diet with ease. It doesn't have to be complicated. And, at the end of the day, whatever stage you're at with your newfound love or deep passion for vegetables or gardening, I think INGARDEN's a nice, baby step for those who need a little push to entry, but also a great just addition for those already in love with the process, because it's something you can have in your kitchen that's right there growing. And again, microgreens are beautiful and they are a fun garnish and they are visually pleasing. But I think now, I guess the mission is to show people that not only are they pretty, but they also are pretty awesome with the nutritional impact that they're going to give you and your family.
So I have a couple of technical questions about the setup itself. So in thinking about setting one up here at the garden center, obviously it's a little different, but I was thinking about if I order one for myself and take it home, is it better to start the timer at a certain time of day? Does it affect the day length?
Question.
If it's close to the window?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the general rule of thumb is anytime. Like that's a great thing about it. Personally, however, I do prefer starting it when I wake up, like early in the morning, because the cycle is 12 hours on, 12 hours off, to mimic like the sun natural process, right, of how the plants experience light through photosynthesis, right? So for me, I like to have it on during the day, for the fact that at night I do live in a small apartment, right? So it is a bright light, which we actually have 4 dimming settings. If it really bothers you, you can dim it. However, obviously the first setting is the optimal. Nonetheless, the others are still fine. So that's why I prefer doing it in early in the morning, so that it's on for 12 hours, whether I'm home or not. It doesn't bother me, right? So that's kind of my preference. I have had it, set at other times. And if you want to change it, you literally just turn it off and you can turn it on when you want. Then the microgreens won't freak out. They're fine, playing around with it to suit you best. Again, I think personalization is fun, right? This is yours. Do with it as you please. Also knowing that it will do the work for you. So that's my 2 cents on when to set the timer.
Okay. And it's not affected by artificial light. It's a obviously it's a full spectrum grow light above the the ceramic base and the trays. So you get the full spectrum just like you would out of a regular grow light. But are the greens affected by artificial light at all?
Do you mean negatively affected by the artificial light, or are you saying like sunlight plus the artificial light?
No. If you have it on, like say you have it on your kitchen table and your kitchen light is on as well as the.
I understand. No, everything will be fine. I would say the only kind of feedback we've got from consumers is if they do have it like literally in their window seal, that can affect the microgreens in the sense of them getting too much light. So understanding that may influence the growth, not necessarily negatively, but perhaps the leaves will be a bit more yellow than green, right? Just from overexposure. That's the only I suppose effect that we've noted. However, it's still not to the effect where your microgreens are dying or are going to be bad in any way, if that makes sense.
Well, and if you're anything like me, all of your natural light through the windows you reserve for herbs or houseplants or anything like that. So the fact that this requires no natural sunlight is really the benefit of it all. So that makes a lot of sense. I just wondered about, because I know certain, just from being a plant nerd, I know that certain plants are affected. It affects their growth cycles. They are under artificial light for too long, or if they're exposed to the grow light and the artificial light at the same time. So I wanted to question that. Another question is, so it's basically a subscription. You can subscribe to get the seed pads, which I think is awesome. That's so cool. That's just another step in the direction of making it easy and accessible for people. But why do you get 7 pads? What is the science behind that? Where did you come up with that?
Okay, so it was more of a calculation between growth, like time of growth cycle, right? You can place 3 seed mats on the INGARDEN at one time, right? And kind of mapping out, I suppose, an estimation of how fast one would consume a seed pad, right? And then replace it with one growth. And then in the sense of a month, right? The subscription is monthly. You'll get sent the echo pack of, the INGARDEN seed mats, so that you at no point in time will not have microgreens to consume. And, like, I'm glad you mentioned in the sense of not having to think about it. You don't have to think about going to the supermarket, to the farmer's market, about, in the sense of ordering it yourself. It's just good, kind of like Amazon. How much did we all love Amazon? Oh, I forgot I ordered that package, right? Like, that happens to me. It's like, oh, it's Christmas. But in the sense of, again, ease and convenience. So 7 was more just an estimation number of calculating the turnaround, because we want to make sure that you are growing your microgreens, and when you want them, they'll be ready to consume, if that makes sense. Because I think, again,
I didn't even think about this, but you can have them at different stages of growth and change one out, and then you're still, nothing is affected. They 12 hours on, 12 hours off either way.
Exactly.
I love that. Is so cool. That was one of the really the second initial things that I noticed in looking at your website, was the subscription part of it, the automation in the mail, and just getting it, having it, it's there when you need it. I get excited. I have many subscriptions, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, because it is.
Don't tell anyone. No.
It is like Christmas, though, because when they arrive, they're in your mailbox. I'm busy working, family, all the work balance stuff. And, when I know it's in my mailbox whenever I get home, it's just exciting.
I think too, with the seed packs, and the microgreens, you're gonna be using them. Like, if it's on your kitchen counter, you're gonna remember to eat them. It's not of I have this subscription and I never use it. Like, you will be using it. And even if you don't, there's seeds that are coming, right? They're not gonna go bad. They're not gonna go off gotta use. There's no stress. Minimize stress is the goal.
That pressure of, especially whenever I go to the grocery store and buy, I try to buy organic and good quality products and things like that. And knowing that they're in the refrigerator going bad as I'm sitting here at work is just like, that kind of pressure is the worst kind, really. So that's something else that I think is really cool, is that as long as they are on the pads and they are growing, there's no waste there. You can cut them, use them. And then once you're done with one pad, you can trade one out, and the other 2 are still ready to go. And so you can have some of those cycles and rotations going. And that's
exactly. Try to keep it circular, right? Just keep it all around.
All around. That's right. So there are, how many varieties of greens did you say?
8.
So you have 8 to choose from. There's also eco packs, where it's a mixture of the 8. You can also get the mono packs, where you have one, so if you decide, hey, I really like the broccoli,
Yeah.
You get a whole 7-pack of broccoli, and
Yeah.
that's nice. The variety is that's always a key factor in situations like this, is that, you know, maybe you get the eco pack the first month and decide, okay, I don't really like this one, so I'm going to try a different pack. You know,
Yeah. No, that's what's great too, because I think, you know, unfortunately, we are creatures of habit and do tend to buy the same foods. And in a sense, that's fine. But, you know, nutritionally speaking, it is best to have as much variety in our body as possible. Because what does variety means? It means variety of nutrients. It means you're covering all your bases. However, when we stick to just a subset of food, unfortunately, we might not necessarily be getting the full spectrum of nutrients that we need. And so what's fun about these variety packs with the eco packs and the seeds is that, you know, we're providing you with the variety. You don't have to, you know, selectively go and buy kale, go and buy cabbage, go and buy broccoli, that all might go bad. Right. You know, we're literally giving you the variety, you know, in the sense of variety of nutrients, but also just fun, right? They all look slightly different, taste slightly different. And it's kind of, I think curiosity and newness is something we all like, even if we don't maybe admit to it. We kind of like that new experience, right? And that's kind of what I try to give with the different seeds themselves as well.
Right, sure. So where can people get their own INGARDEN? That's going to be the first question that I get a million emails about. So
good question. Yeah. Really simple, ingarden.com. And don't forget as well, if you are gonna, you know, take the leap and make a purchase, to use the discount code all around 20, because at the end of the day, we all want to save a little here and a little there. But ingarden.com is where you can find, you know, the shop page. You can find the nutritional information of each microgreen. You can understand exactly how the hydroponic system works. We have visuals and, you know, paragraphs of words and explaining it, however much detail you want to go into. It's there for you. And like I said, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so I think even just taking the time to check it out is a step in the right direction. Whether whether you make the jump today of the purchase or not, I think awareness is the first step with anything. So that's making me happy. Just so grateful to even have this conversation with you today, right? That again, that's that kind of positive momentum change I was talking about, because this is, you know, one person might listen to it and tell their friend, who tells a friend, who tells their grandma, you know, whatever it might be. I think that makes me happy just to think about that.
Yeah. So, and just a side note here, very, very, very big kudos to you guys on your website. Your website is fantastic. It's clean. It's very informative. The way the information is presented is really easily consumed. That was something that I noticed right away, was that the website is super easy to use and it's really nice. That's a good one.
Oh, that's such good feedback, because honestly, we're like still undergoing construction as we, you know, learn things. So that's good to hear, like good feedback, because I think sometimes you can get like too caught up in the details, like, no, this is wrong.
Right.
But that's so good to hear. Okay. You made my day.
Absolutely. I think we're wrapping this up here.
Yes.
I will say, if any of our listeners do purchase an INGARDEN, if you will tag us in social media photos whenever you set it up, we will send you a discount code to use in our garden center, because we like to see the feedback from, you know, the products that we talk about on the podcast, and just, you know, where people's interests lie and things like that. So anyone who makes a purchase, use the discount code, and then when you get your INGARDEN, set it up, take some photos, progress photos, photos with the kids, whatever you want to do. And we will send, if you tag us in those photos, we will send you a link to use a discount code in our garden center. Follow us on any social media outlets at Frisella Nursery. Natalie, do you want to spot your social media?
Yes. I just to mention, I like that idea, that kind of full circle. That's really great. I love sharing pictures and seeing all that. Like when I see it on the social media,
we love it too.
It's so fun. It's like, oh, community.
Right.
But yes, our social media is the same, ingarden.com. So simple.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. This was a really neat experience. It's always cool to see, where people are making moves in the directions to get people more healthy, get community involved. The sustainability factor is incredible. I look forward to seeing where you guys go with this product.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the podcast, please. And like I said, if you do purchase an INGARDEN, let us know so that we can encourage you and keep the ball rolling.
Yes.